300,000 children die every year in sub-Saharan Africa because they can't afford to see a doctor. In the 1980s, African governments were encouraged by donors such as the World Bank to introduce fees for healthcare. It was thought that these fees would encourage them to develop sustainable healthcare systems. However, with the passing of time, we've seen this hasn't worked. Today, over 800 children every day die because they can't afford these healthcare fees. Although the charges for healthcare are actually very small in themselves, people earn so little that actually it's impossible to pay them. Although, for instance, it only costs £4.24 to treat a child with malaria, that's the equivalent of someone in this country having to pay £700 for that treatment. Of course, families will do anything they can to raise the cash. They might borrow money from moneylenders or from family and friends, but often there is no way to borrow money, and without treatment, if the child doesn't get better on their own, then they will die. In July 2005, at the G8 summit at Gleneagles, hosted by Tony Blair, world leaders made a commitment to support free healthcare in the world's poorest countries. A year later, very few real changes had materialised, and there was very little sign of any real changes in the lives of poor children in Africa. World leaders had committed themselves at Gleneagles to wipe out these fees, but nothing of any substance was actually forthcoming. Save the Children knew that politicians had to be challenged as to why they'd failed to deliver.
Save the Children contacted Monkey with a brief that focused around the G8 summit as a time to start campaigning. The ultimate goal was to get Tony Blair or Gordon Brown to mention it in their keynote speech and to renew their promise. We asked ourselves this question: how could we empower the general public to express their feeling? How could we generate a sense of solidarity amongst the electorate and put more pressure on the government? We felt it was important to have an idea that could work with both internal comms at Save the Children and external comms, an idea that could work throughout all divisions. We chose a sticking plaster with the word ouch printed on it because it conveyed the concept of healing. The campaign ask that appeared on any form of communication was, "Where will you stick yours?" We encouraged the general public to use the sticking plaster, stick it on themselves, take a photo of themselves and then send it into an online gallery as a form of protest. We also created an online campaign which linked back to a microsite which showed the gallery of supporters. We had events, we had a day of action to kick off the campaign, we had celebrity endorsement and a lot of PR going on at the same time. We had 250,000 postcards with a plaster which was peelable on the front of the postcard, and the campaign message was, "Where will you stick those?" The day of action that springboarded the campaign was based around the campaign postcards being handed out at all the major train stations in central London. This was handed out with Metro, which included a story of Midjour going to Sierra Leone, and then other celebrities followed suit. We had celebrities from the world of music, like the Cooks and Franz Ferdinand, right up to people on TV, including Connie Huck, Samantha Morton and the stars from Casualty. On the first day of the campaign, we had 15,000 texts sent in supporting the issue. We had 400 images instantly uploaded to the online gallery. Other activities included interaction with the Save the Children shops and their staff. This involved a kit that we sent out nationally. It was, again, a plaster visual that was stuck onto their window. We created a transparent transfer which made the window look like it was broken, and the ouch sticker was across it. One crucial element of the campaign was to give the politicians a final reminder what the campaign was about. So just before they headed off to the G8, the night before, we planned a series of huge projections across the Westminster area and also across the South Bank. These projections featured people who had taken part in the campaign. Well, our goal was to get Tony Blair to mention the Save the Children campaign in his keynote speech. Not only did he mention the campaign and its figures, but it was the only NGO to receive a reference.
The attention that the Ouch campaign generated in the media and amongst our supporters brought the issue of healthcare fees right to the front of the agenda of the UK government. Tony Blair and Hilary Benn, Secretary of State for International Development, backed the campaign, and the UK is now an active force working internationally to abolish healthcare fees.